Well, hello, and we appreciate everybody that has logged in thus far. You're here at Tara's Third Thursday webinar. We will be holding just for a couple of minutes to allow anybody that's having any issues with the technology to log on properly. Anybody that is, finishing up a sales call or something that just going to keeping them away from logging on exactly at 3 o'clock. So if you just kind of hold patiently, we will get this started in just a minute or two. And for those that continue to join, please note we are live with Tara's Third Thursday webinar. We are just holding for a few brief moments to allow some folks that are stragglers or having difficulty with technology to make sure they have some adequate time to get on the system before we start the presentation. So we appreciate your patience, and thank you for being on time. Okay, looks like we have a couple more people joining us. And for those that have just joined us, please note we will be getting started here momentarily, just allowing some time for some last minute attendees to log into the system. I know sometimes people have some trouble with that, so we're going to be patient, allow a few folks to get on board before we start this. But this will be recorded, so even those that come in late, we're going to have the opportunity to see the entire presentation at the very end. So according to the clock, I see that it is 3:02 Eastern time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, thank you everybody that has joined us thus far. We want to thank you for participating in this edition of Tara's Third Thursday webinars. We'd like to especially thank those of you that are Tara members that have access to these monthly information sessions for free, but we also want to extend a thank you to our guests and our non-paying members and visitors as well. Like all of our previous Tara Third Thursday presentations, this is intended to be brief and to the point. We understand that you guys are very busy, so we want to bring you some useful information that you can use to enhance your knowledge and your operations. The title of today's presentation is Automation Advantage, How to Accelerate Your ITAD Business Processes. It is hosted by our partners, friends, and allied members, Blancco. We have scheduled today another 45-minute session. So that's going to include about 30 minutes of presentation with about a 15-minute Q&A period if time allows. And during this process, since everybody's going to be muted, please use the chat feature or the questions feature to send any questions that you have to our presenters. I will coordinate and collate those and ask those questions on behalf of the group at the very end. So before I introduce our primary presenter, I would like to say first a quick word about Blancco. As you all know, Blancco is a well-known brand in the certified recycling industry and a supporter of Tara. They're a leader in the area of data erasure and mobile device diagnostics. Their data erasure software provides thousands of organizations and many of our members the tools they need to enable sustainable data sanitization processes across a wide array of IT assets. They can focus on erasing and reusing assets instead of physically destroying them, and they ensure compliance with local and global data requirements. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce my friend Karen Fetter, who's going to be our primary presenter today. Karen currently holds the position of Director of ITAD at Blancco. She has more than 25 years of professional experience related to technology and different technology areas. For the last 10, she has been with Blancco serving as the ITAD subject matter expert. I'm sure you've heard her speak, and she's moderated numerous ITAD events across North America and is known as a trusted industry advisor. We're proud to have her here, and she is the author of many published articles, including those in RLA magazines and eScrap News, amongst many others. Karen's focus is on demonstrating how to reduce active touch time and labor costs while increasing throughput and maximizing device resale value. So with that, thank you, Karen, and your team, and I turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that wonderful introduction. Actually, if I make it to July 2nd, I will be at Blancco for 11 years, which is pretty exciting. seen a lot of changes over the years. I know some of you that are attending have been in the industry for a long time, and you've experienced a lot of those changes as well. Steve pretty much told you all I needed you to know about me. I know a lot of you. For those of you that I don't know, hopefully our paths will pass either electronically or in person in the near future. I wanted to tell you just quickly, Blancco's been in business, for those that don't know. We've actually been in business since 1997. And when we began, we started just doing PCs because there had been a data breach in Finland. That's where we were originally from. And it grew from there. Everything that we are today, everything that we support and we erase today is a direct result of the requests of our clients, because we're driven by you. So as things are changing and growing, we're changing and growing. The person that's going to be backing me up and giving the technical aspect of this, and it's very brief, it's not a deep dive, but it is going to show you what automation can do for you, is Chris Thacker. Chris, many of you also probably know, Chris was with Aero for 17 years, and he ran the Columbus facility for the last 10 for the data eraser in Columbus, Ohio, which was Aero's largest facility. He's very, very familiar with Blancco. He's very familiar with the industry. He has sat where all of you are sitting right now. The only other thing I would say is think of questions, like Steve said. As you think of questions, put them in the chat. You don't have to wait till the end. Hopefully we'll have time to get to those. I would rather be brief and give you some good information and then let you have your questions answered. Just to go over the agenda, I'm going to talk about what the process challenges are, benefits of automation. Chris is going to show you some workflows. I'm going to talk about an actual time-saving case study that we recently did, and then talk about remote eraser. Okay, let's go. So the process challenges, there's many, and I'm sure that you will be able to relate at least to some of them. I talk to ITADs all day long, and the thing that I'm hearing from everybody except my one client who's remotely located in a very away from everybody, he's the only person I know that isn't having trouble getting labor right now because there's nothing else in the town, so he's it. So not only am I hearing that you're experiencing labor shortages, but you're also having to pay more for the people that you are able to get. I've heard about companies that are offering sign-on bonuses to get employees. I've even heard about somebody that was actually willing to pay their own employees a referral fee if they had friends or they knew people that were looking for a job, and they could get them to come and stay for just 90 days. They were willing to give them a bonus for that. It's a real problem now. And the next problem is you get them in the door, and now you need to get them on the floor right away. They're not making you money. They're costing you until they're able to start processing devices. The next one is the manual processes. So every time you're touching things, it's costing you labor. They used to call it active touch time. That was in the old days. I hopefully some of you are nodding your heads that you remember when that's what we used to call it. But when you're doing things manually, you're paying labor. That's your most expensive line item when you look at processing a device. The idea is you want to reduce that cost, not only because of the amount it's costing you, but for the next area that I have listed, which is inconsistent processes. I've been to so many locations, as I'm sure many of you have, and you can literally see people in the same building processing things different ways because they're being asked to judge it. They're saying, well, how do you rate this? How are you going to be erasing this? What algorithm are you using? Things like that. And the same company's devices could be getting erased different ways and get processed different ways. Because of those inconsistencies, the next thing you're looking at is human error. I don't know if anybody's read the book, Hope is Not a Strategy, but hoping that there isn't human error is kind of a big mistake. You're going to have human error when you're asking people to make decisions. The other part of that is, I call it fat finger syndrome, that guys are typing and they've got fat fingers and they can just in no intention hit the wrong button. I had a client, they were a prospect at the time, and that's why they called us, was they had a client call them and said, I need you to send me a report on this specific drive. Of course, they went in there because they were using Excel spreadsheets, and a lot of companies still are, and they couldn't find it when they put that in. They literally had to shut their operation down. Everybody there for a day and a half had to go through thousands of reports till they were able to drill down to a few of the numbers that they thought it could be. And then they realized it was a number that was transposed. Those are the types of things that can happen when you're having inconsistent processes that are manual. The next one is process management. Having process parity and parity in reporting across your enterprise or across your organization is very important. Having the same processes, whether you have one location, multiple locations in the United States, if you're a global company, making sure that company's devices are being erased the same way and processed and graded the same way, no matter where you're doing it. The other part of that is that all devices are not processed the same way. You're not going to erase and process a mobile device like you will a Cisco router or a laptop or storage array. So all of those things require specific processes, and having them be the same is going to make your company operate at its maximum efficiency, not only from meeting SLAs, but also being able to get the maximum amount of dollars for each device. Everybody has their special competitive advantage, their special secret sauce. But in some instances, just being able to have that process parity, being able to have that reporting, to be able to prove that everybody is doing it the same way is going to be a competitive advantage when you're looking at some of the people out there that are doing things in a much more rudimentary way. You still have your special sauce, but there's things that the companies are looking for now. I think the enterprise clients are way more sophisticated today than they were even 11 years ago. They're asking for things today that they didn't even know existed or they didn't ask for years ago. And it's up to you to be able to not say, well, let me find out if I can do that for you. It's up to you to be able to say, when you're talking, Mr. Prospect, yes, I can do that for you. And even better, tell them what you can do and show them how you're different from everybody else. The next thing is innovation. This is a really important one because the question is, are you able to keep up with the technology that's coming out? Are you able to erase the latest devices? Are you able to process the latest things? Or are you being forced to shred them because either your technology can't take care of it, or even worse, your process is such that your employees don't know how to process it? And either way, you're losing money. You're going to lose market share because your clients aren't going to be getting as much. Just like you're on the heels of other people that have clients that you want to get, your competitors are on your heels. And if you're not at the top of your game, somebody's going to come behind you and they're going to find that weakness and they're going to do that. And one of the big ones is being able to take care of the latest technology that's out there. The last one is compliance and regulation. R2V3 is huge. And I can tell you that I'm getting some new clients right now because there's products out there that can't support the new R2v3 requirements. And if you can't do that, how are you going to pass that? How are you going to pass that audit? If you're doing e-stewards, can you do the battery testing that's now required? If you're doing business with companies that have a foreign presence, can you match the algorithms, or can you meet the algorithms that they need in other countries? And you may not need that today, but when you're thinking about growing your business, these are the types of things that you want to be able to consider. I don't know about you, but I've been calling it for the last 6 months. I've been saying there's this boomerang that's going to come, and we're going to get a lot of product coming into your facilities. Things are loosening up. People are getting back into work, and that's what's happening now. Being able to address all of that is what you need to think about now if you haven't been thinking about it, and not be reactive, but rather be proactive. So breaking down, what's being faced is high labor costs because of the economy, not being able to get employees, that too many manual processes. I've actually seen companies where they're doing the asset gathering in one location, they're pulling the drive, they're erasing them in one place, then they're taking the rest of the device, they're testing it, and they're grading it in another. Now you've got 3 people that you're paying labor for when everything could be done at one time, or maybe in 2 processes, but there's no need to break it up that way. It's very inefficient and it's very expensive. This automation is going to take care of that. And the best part is it takes the decision-making away from the operator, because you want these people you want them to be able to process a lot and not have to stop and think about what's being done. Being able to standardize those processes is going to help that. You want to eliminate the human error, the possibility for human error, for all the reasons I already mentioned, and then taking different steps in those processes, having the ability to take different steps based on what your needs are and what your client's needs are, whether you're creating cut lines, whether the client doesn't want certain things erased, or they want certain things processed one way and other devices another. They want DOD, other people still want NIST. I even heard I think just about all of you have that one client that's still asking for a 7-pass, and you just can't get them off of that 7-pass. Well, how are you going to address that? I've actually seen where the manifest comes in, a supervisor writes down, do this 3-pass or do this NIST, and then they're handing those papers out to the operators. That's using hope as a strategy. I hope they look down and they see that. It's not necessary. Creating those processes is going to help you. So the benefits of the automation are the increased efficiency. What that efficiency is going to do is help you process more. What that processing more is going to do is each operator is going to be responsible for giving you more revenue each day than they're currently giving you based on how you're doing your processing. How many people are touching that device is going to make a big difference. I had somebody call me. He didn't need to have anything erased. All he needed to do is have all the information gathered about the device. They were doing it manually, and then he had somebody else that was grading the device. They sent it out, sent their Excel spreadsheet, and the short version is $40,000 of product came back, and it came back because the information was not being gathered correctly. And when they said it was a grade, whatever it wasn't based on that client. If you can have reporting that says this is my grade A, B, C, and D, and here's the report to prove what it is, A, you're going to get more money for that device, and B, you're going to have lower RMAs. And don't we all want, or don't you all want lower RMAs? There's nothing efficient or effective about having those. When you're looking at the consistency and the scalability, you're getting more product. I'm going to assume you're getting more product. Well, it's going to happen, and you're going to start getting more and more. You know, when Aero closed, a lot of those contracts went to other people. You may have some of those, but some of those contracts, those people aren't happy with where they landed, and some of those contracts are going out for RFP currently, and they will be as things open up more. So how are you going to scale your business? You have two choices. You either get more real estate, or you create more efficient processes so you are scalable. I don't know anybody that wants to go out right now and make an investment in more real estate when they don't know what's going to happen. It's much easier to look where you are and create those efficiencies. And then being able to do that customization, whether it's cut lines, whether you're doing grading, testing, should it be NIST or should it be three pass? I had somebody I went in to see, and he had this had already happened, but he was telling me the story, and it's why he was looking at me. He had hundreds of devices come in from somebody. They erased them all as DOD. Great, right? Except for the fact that they wanted them to be NIST. So now he's paid labor on everything. The electricity had to be paid. The devices, the drives have now gone through 3 passes, so there's wear on those, and now he has to go back and do it all again with NIST. When you have a customized process, that's not going to happen. And then you're taking away the human error, which goes needless to say. I think I've given you enough examples, and you probably have some in your own business of why you don't want to have that opportunity to have that human error. So I'm going to pass it on to Chris and let him go through the first workflow for a loose drive.
Thanks, Karen. This particular workflow, very similar to a Visio document, it's drag and drop of widgets, and those widgets tell our solution drive erasure different commands and what to do. So based on, like Karen was mentioning, you wanted to grade a target device. So this could be like this example, it's for a loose drive. You have 2 conditional statements, and those conditional statements can identify the health of the drive. Based on the health of the drive that you specify in condition 1, you could get a grade A. If it didn't meet that criteria, it looks at the next condition, which is your second condition. And those conditions can include remapped or reallocated sectors, uncorrectable errors, as well as power on hours and smart data table testing as being pass or fail. Based on that information, you then, after you do your grading, the next block says send a report. So in that scenario, you're just grading the device, capturing the device info, and then sending an automatic report. And it does it fluently, and it's nothing for the operator to do other than power on the device. It loads into our software. You've predetermined what the conditions are. The grade is assigned, reports automatically sent. Karen, if you could bring up the next slide for slide 7. Let's show, this is a little bit more in depth of a dynamic workflow, and this workflow is providing for a whole device. So the same type of scenario that you can do with just a loose drive and doing that grading, you can do additional functional steps. As Karen had mentioned, that some devices you need to do one particular test versus another. So in this example, I wanted to do a different test for any notebooks or tablets. So if the conditional statement looked at the chassis type, because we do pull in that information within our software, you can then make it automatically decide if it is a notebook or a tablet or a portable. It would automatically load in the passing side and say, notebook devices, we're going to do diagnostics. Because typically for a desktop server, You're not going to do specific diagnostics that you would for a notebook or a laptop, like the screen test or keyboard or mouse. Therefore, let's segment those type of processes. That way, it saves your operators time because you're not having to tell them, don't perform these tests on notebooks. It's just automatically going to make that decision for you, and it's going to only push the diagnostic tests that you need. As well as erasure algorithms, as Karen had mentioned, you can predetermine that, just automatically select that if it's going to be DoD or if it's going to be a NIST compliant, as well as build in optional failovers. That way, if one erasure standard, there's an issue with that drive, you could fall back to another erasure algorithm. You just build that into the pass fail type scenario. So the additional piece at the end of this, I want to show you that where I have a sort value that says finished goods or a sort value that says replace battery. These also help identify in the reports where you could start sorting the target devices after they've been tested. So it's went through the diagnostics and the erasure, and once it's completely finished, you can assign a value that when the report is looked up by a operator, it says, oh, it says finished goods. Let's send that to your remarketing channel for sale. If it said replace battery or repair or replace drive, that's going to your repair department. So those drives would be pulled and replaced, or even a piece or a component like the battery could be pulled and replaced. So those are just some scenarios. Also think of memory down the road if you needed to identify making upgrades to those target devices, or if it's a server that comes in that has massive amount of memory installed, you could pull out some of those memory modules, sell the memory individually versus as a whole in that target device. So dynamic workflows will allow you to automate your business process based on your needs, and it's completely configurable. Back to you, Karen.
Thank you, Chris. And again, if you have any questions, because typically this part of it gets a lot of questions, just put them in the chat and we'll get to those at the end. Okay, so we've told you about automation. We've showed you about automation. Now let's talk about an actual real life example about automation. This is a proof of concept that we performed recently. I won't say the competitor, but you know what? There's not that many of us in the business. And so it could have been anybody. But in this particular case, the idea was the client wanted to know, how efficient are we? How much more would they be able to process? Because the truth is, our licenses were a lot more money than what they were currently paying. And when I talk to you, I always talk to people and I say, it doesn't matter what my license cost is. It matters what it costs to process the device. So we did like a head-to-head, and what we were able to find, and this is a good software. This is not some of the other ones. This is one of the higher up ones. And what we found is that this is the time that was saved as far as loading the software, erasing it, doing the reporting of it, the diagnostics of it, and the battery check. Now the battery check, that 1 minute, we do it automatically. None of that was done by an operator. Everything in here, except for the diagnostics where they were going to say, is there a scratch or something like that? Other than that, it is all done automatically. And what they found was we did 100 laptops. And what they found was the intended time. That's what we used to call the active touch time. That's what you're paying your labor cost on. For 100 devices, there was a savings of 80% in the attended time and 13% in the unattended time. That being the eraser, the boot up, things like that. What this means for you is that one operator is going to be able to process that many more devices a day. And if you do an average, let's say you're selling laptops for $40, and let's say they were able to do X number a day, now they can do Y number. You figure out the math on how much that means you're going to do per operator. You have 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 or 20 operators, you're starting to look at significant numbers when you're looking at the difference. I think that it's always been people calling and going, so how much do your licenses cost? Or, you know, I know Blancco's the most expensive. What do those cost? Why do you want it? Why do you charge so much? When you look at things like they're not, people are becoming more savvy. You guys and ladies are becoming more savvy, and you know now it's not about what you're paying for a license, whether it erases or it doesn't. What really matters is how long is it taking you to find out, how much risk are you putting into it, how much efficiency is there, and how scalable is that process. Moving on to something, and this is going to be the last area that that we're going to cover, is remote eraser. So there's actually 3 use cases for this. The first one is enterprise users that have home workers and they're still on the network. The next one would be remote users again, but they're not on the network. And then the third one is consumers returning devices if you're doing take-back programs. In all these instances, we're assuming that there's a requirement that the drive be erased before it's put in the box. And I'm going to do this on a really high level. You know, we can always dig in with you if you ever want to talk about it, but these are the types of things people are doing to make their businesses more efficient and to be able to provide more avenues of services, because services is where the money's at, let's be honest, to their enterprise clients. So there's 2 ways of doing this. You can actually use like a pre-install package and send an email to the employee, and they just boot it. They get that email, they click, 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 boot it up. The ISO comes up, the process begins. When it's done erasing, it sends that report back to you. You can automatically have those reports sent to the client. So now from an IT asset management perspective, they can look at it and be able to follow that chain of custody. They're following it. Now they know it's been erased. They put it in the box. They send it back to you. And you already have the report, so you don't have to erase it again if you don't want to. That's a personal choice. You know, you make that decision. The other way is if it isn't on the network, you can actually send those boxes out with a bootable CD. I'm sorry, we used to have a bootable CD. That's in the real old days. In a bootable USB, and again, they put that in there. It comes up, it does the erasure, it gives the report gets put on that USB, they leave the USB in there, they shut the device, they put it in the box, it comes back to you. The other way of doing it, and it's being used more now as companies are opening up, is doing eraser as a service, where you're actually deploying technicians to locations. And you can do it in a Pixie environment where it's more automated. There's a lot of ways depending on where you're going, what your access is, and what needs to be erased. I think the important thing is to know that if you're a smaller ITAD and you're thinking, well, that's a great idea, but I just don't have the workforce to do that, that's okay. If you're interested in something like that, I can always introduce you. I love connecting the dots. They call it net weaving. I would be more than happy to connect you with ITADs in that area that you need geographically that can help you do that. Partnering is really an important thing, and I think it's become a bigger thing in ITAD over the years, that if you can't compete, collaborate. And why lose the business if you can partner with somebody and keep the whole account and have somebody locally handle something for you if you don't have the ability to get out there, or it's such a small job, it doesn't pay to fly out there. I'm always more than happy to help connect you with partners of ours that could do that work for you. I kind of got ahead of myself, but being able to erase anywhere before it gets shipped. The next thing is being able to do an unlimited amount of servers simultaneously if you're going on site, or even if you're doing it remotely. RMA is a big one because we've literally gone to ITADs and they're saying, I went to a client and they had a closet full of RMA drives, but they can't ship them because they've got data on them. So now they're being forced to pay the OEM, you know, anywhere from $700-800 to multiple thousands of dollars for drives, when you could come in and do that service for them, and then they could go out and then they would be able to return those drives. And then the last thing is being able to erase the full asset and not having to remove the drive before the shipping, because that's going to happen in your enterprise if you're looking at servers and things like that. If you can erase it in that device and you don't have to pull them out, you're going to save yourself time, you're going to save your client time. And that is all the material that I have for today. I do have some information that when you get the PowerPoint, it's some additional information about intelligent business routing, about our webinars that we did on intelligent business routing. You can also go to blancco.com/ITAD. We have all kinds of information that is also, some of it is obviously Blancco, but some other information that might be of interest to you. And that's how you can get in touch with me. And that's all I've got. And are there any questions?
Well, Karen, thank you so much. And Chris, that was, you know, exceptionally informative. Just perfectly what we're looking for. Good, fast half hour of really great information. And I love that you talked about partnering and made yourself available to that to make some connections for people, because of course that's what Terra is all about. It's about our network. It's about helping, you know, our certified recyclers work together more efficiently and together. But a couple questions did pop up. I actually got some that were sent to me personally. But one of them here was, you know, having seen, you know, some of the workflows, and, you know, to a lot of people that do things kind of more manually, that might seem to be a little bit scary for folks. It was, you know, how hard is it to create those workflows? They look kind of technical, but how difficult in practice is it to deploy them?
I'm going to let Chris answer that as a technical person. I will answer as a layperson. It's literally like doing Visio. It's drag and drop. I've actually done it with Chris, and I kind of figure it's idiot proof. If the salesperson can do it, then anybody can do it. But I'm going to let Chris give a more professional answer.
Yeah, the intelligent business routing was meant to be as simple as possible, but also be as complex and intuitive as what you need in your business processes. So for us at Blancco, for you to start utilizing the product, drag and drop and doing the simple functional tasks is very easy. When you get into the harder intuitive type pieces that you want to automate, we actually offer training from the Blancco team, so we can train you on doing that. We include many different documents and so forth for the intelligent business routing, but our professional service team can help you create the workflows that you would necessarily need, as well as provide sample workflows that you could actually look at and edit.
Well, good. And then, you know, so from that process, from automating all of this, I mean, you kind of gave some of those numbers and percentages, 80%, 13%. You know, what is the, you know, how much time, you know, per automator or per person do you really save? And what's kind of the bottom number on those, if you can get to one?
My short answer, and then I will again defer to Chris, is it's going to depend on your operation. One of the interesting things is that people don't know what they don't know. And you say to someone, well, how much operator attended time do you have? And they say, I got 2 minutes. And they're doing everything manually, and they don't even understand their process. They've never done the timing. So depending how much is manual, how much is automated, it's going to depend. But again, Chris, Chris having been in the business and been to a lot of the ITADs with me, I'm going to let him give another answer.
Yeah, so just taking that 80% attended time based on the slide that was presented. So we saved 80% of that operator's attended time per asset. That should equate to you need to add enough equivalency of 50% more flow to that operator to keep them occupied during that time. Therefore, if they were at that time, if they were doing 50 devices, they should be doing 100.
Wow. Yeah, that's a pretty significant jump in productivity.
Definitely, because the attended time touching the asset, trying to get something processed, if you're saving 80%, increase your flow by at least 50%, and then you've got that the rest of the time as lead time for other things that possibly could happen in the middle of that. So you could increase your productivity by 50% in this current scenario.
Wow. And then another question here that came up was your erasure as a service. And fascinating, as workforces are now being deployed remotely and at their homes. How much of an uptick are you seeing there? How simple is it for an ITAD to integrate that into their current offering?
I'm going to let Chris take this because this is more of a technical question. There is a definite uptick because you can't go to everybody's house and erase something, and they want to have the device. They want to either take it off a lease or it needs to be upgraded or whatever it is. So from a request standpoint, it's coming in at a much higher rate from the enterprise. I'm going to let Chris talk about the other side of that.
Yeah, and if you're already using our Blancco products, you use an additional different license type and then package your same configured ISO image. So it's literally going to take you less than 10 minutes to get this pre-packaged and ready and then deploy it. You can host this on an FTP site and then just share a URL link and an email for them to download the software. So utilizing the same Blancco products that we currently already have, and you're just building a functionality to allow for software to be downloaded and installed to a target device. So there's just a few technical challenges behind it. Those technical challenges can be overcome by communicating with the current users and their admins.
So boiled down, make sure I'm saying this correctly, because yeah, I'm with Karen. I'm just kind of a dumb sales guy, but so what I heard was I don't have to necessarily mail like a USB drive to every single one of my customers that need that. I just need to have like some URL downloadable site that anybody in the world could access and be able to install and destroy their data remotely.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That was a good summarization. Yes. And for those users that don't have internet access and they're offline, that's where that physical USB drive would come into play.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
And if you're not a Blancco client, it isn't difficult to set this up, which I think is, because I'm sure there's a lot of people on here that aren't our clients currently. It isn't something that's hard to set up because we have a technical team that'll help walk you through it.
Yeah, probably setting up a downloadable link is probably a lot easier than some of the other things that go through the automation process.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Chris, Karen, again, thank you very much. Extremely helpful. This recording is going to be made available to everybody here just as soon as the GoToMeeting system provides us with a finalized version of the video. We will send out a link to everybody. It's going to be hosted at our Terra channel, our Terra Third Thursday channel. So our prior presentations can be also visible from there as well. Our next Terra Third Thursday is going to be on July the 15th, and is going to be hosted by the Vested Group, and they're going to be talking about ERP systems, ERP solutions, best practices. So I hope you'll join us for that. And that is all. So again, thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Blancco and team, for being our hosts and presenters, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody next month. So take care, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.